Hey guys, this is Susan with Pack Leader Dog Training. I'm here with Rachel Color Dog Training, here for another weekly Q&A, and I think Rachel is going to start us off.
Yes, ma'am. All right, so question number one. So when training, what is the difference between a metal choke chain, a slip lead, or a prong collar?
So a metal choke chain and a slip lead are very similar. They work in the same way. So it's, I believe, what's called a limited choke, or is it just a choke chain? It's just a choke chain. So it's looped in such a way that when you do pressure with your leash, so if the dog gets away from you, it's going to choke them. The prong collar does not choke.
That's a limited choke.
It looks barbaric, but what it does or how it works is if you use it as a popping mechanism rather than constant pressure, it gives that dog like that momentary correction versus pressure on the whole time, and it displaces the pressure around the whole neck versus just pressure on the trachea.
Mm-hmm.
How would you describe it, Rachel?
So I don't know why I didn't pull these out because I'm like had the question, so I should have been prepared. But yeah, so the choke chain and the slip lead, they are both full slip collars. The prong collar is a limited slip. So the choke chain and the slip lead, if you imagine them not on a dog, they will tighten all the way up until it's nothing. So what that means is if the dog keeps pulling, it'll keep getting tighter and tighter and tighter. So yeah, you can actually choke a dog with those. So you got to be really smart and really careful when using those tools. I think the only difference between a choke chain and a slip is just that a choke chain, you'll hook a leash onto it. So it's just the collar part, and you can hook a leash to it. And then the slip lead, the whole thing is leash and collar. But it's the same function. So it does displace pressure around the whole neck, just like a prong collar does. So whereas a flat collar puts all the pressure on the trachea, a slip and a choke will provide pressure around the whole neck.
Okay, but just keep choking.
Yeah, it'll just keep getting tighter. So then that leads us to the prong collars, and then wasn't mentioned, but also martingales. Those are forms of a limited slip. So if you look at one, it'll get tighter, but only to a point. So that's why you fit them to your dog properly. So it's going to get tight enough that there's pressure around the whole dog's neck, but it's not going to get tight enough to the fact that it's going to choke them out. So like prong collars are actually one of the safer collars for your dog for this reason. It can't choke them out, and it can't cause trachea damage because it's got even pressure around the whole neck.
Nice.
So, fun fact, as far as like training, because the question was when you're training, I think you used to train with slip leads, right? I've never trained with, I've never done actual pressure on, pressure off training with a choke chain or a slip lead, but I think it's the same idea. I think you still want to try to train with pressure on, pressure off. You just have to have a little bit more, a little bit of a different skill set for the choke chain and the slip lead, I think.
Yeah, you end up using more force because when the dog feels the pressure, like they just pull into it for the most point. So like to get an accurate like pop, if you would with a prong pop, you actually have to use a bit of force because the dog's already pulling into it, so that if you give them slack, they'll keep pulling. So it is a skill set, and it's just not as user friendly as a prong collar. So that was a good one.
Fun.
Very detailed, yes.
But again, it's like I don't have a choke chain, but I've got a slip lead and a martingale and a prong, and I got to remember when I want to share things in the Q&A to have them prepared next time.
I'm ready. Okay, so question 2. My dog growls when playing with his Frisbee sometimes. How do you tell the difference between a play growl and an aggressive growl?
So there's a few different ways I could approach this. I could say, well, growling in general is just not okay. That being said, I know a lot of dogs play growl. So do we want to correct him if he's actually play growling? I don't know. So without actually seeing this, it's not like super safe for me to be like, oh yeah, like describe something and you think your dog's play growling and they're actually resource guarding. But some cues to go off of is body language. That's probably going to be the biggest one in this situation, I think. So if your dog is like wiggling and bouncing, moving around, and they kind of give out a little growl, it's probably, right, kitty, it's probably a play growl. So don't quote me on that. Don't, like, still be safe with your dog because they are growling, but it's probably a play growl if they're wiggling. Now, if they've got the Frisbee and you approach them and they freeze and growl, they're uncomfortable, and that's probably a warning growl, and that you would want to handle as an aggressive growl, which, don't want to give too much advice on that. You should contact a professional trainer on that one. But you got to know your dog, right? You know your dog, you'll feel their intent. If they're wiggling and growling and you take the Frisbee and you throw it and everything's happy and fine, it's most likely a play growl. If it's like just a low little, but if they're like stiff and it's loud, then I would be more concerned. What do you think, Susan?
I think, yeah, the easiest way, if you're questioning it, the easiest thing is to just train out. And so you just, when they start growling, you're like, out, total disengagement from the toy, throw, and then when you throw it, you say break, so they know the out command's over. That would be the best advice I can give you, not working with your dog, because I don't want to do you that disservice. Because I would hate to tell you something like and have it not be a play growl but an aggressive growl. But most people know, like Rachel said, the body movement, they're more fluid. If the dog's stiff at all and growling, that doesn't make me feel good. But when in doubt, if you're questioning it as the owner, I'm just going to out you off that toy now. It's the easiest. Yeah.
That's smart. I don't know why my brain didn't even go to, like, just out him. That's what you should do. And honestly, any dog, just out him. It's like, train your dog out when you're playing fetch. It just helps with everything anyways. Oh, goodness. That was good. All right. Scooch on to the next one. Now that Susan had that super genius comment that didn't even, like, click in my brain. All right. So, why do you recommend crate training? And when you do, is it just for puppies or adult dogs or both?
I recommend crate training for everybody because it provides structure and a way to hold your dog accountable throughout the day. So let's say you wanted to just train your dog obedience and maybe they bark sometimes or something. I like crate training because the crate is holding my dog accountable for me when I'm not there. Because I don't know what's happening when I'm not home. So you could be like, yeah, my dog is fine. Like when I come home, nothing's disturbed, all of that. Doesn't get into things. Cool. But let's say when you're gone, your dog practices running up to the window and chasing birds and barking. And it works. Like when he barks and chases, the birds fly away. So he gets reaffirmed that when he barks, things will move away from him. And then you come home and now you're like, don't bark. So you correct him and he gives you a hard time. So what is your dog doing when you're not home? That's why I like it. Because if you're going to implement a training program, it's going to help hold him accountable or your dog accountable for their behavior. Because I teach calm in the kennel. So I'm going to teach him that being in the crate, he has to be calm. So that's why I like it. We could touch on potty training, like it helps with potty training. But I'm going to leave up that to Rachel because I think you had some things to say.
Oh, yeah. So lots of reason. And then just to agree with what you said first, like, yeah, so something I'll tell my owners is, especially like after training during the 90-day protocol, I recommend your dogs in a crate when you're not watching them and when you're not home. And they're like, why? And it's because all the work you put into training your dog when you're with them, why would you want to risk like that going down the drain just because you want them to be out of the kennel when you're not home? Because exactly like you said, what are they doing? And then in addition to that, I recommend it for all my dogs. It's part of my 90-day protocol for after training. But I really recommend it for puppies for a couple of reasons. So like Susan said, potty training. Crate training and potty training, they're best friends, and they're going to be your best friend if you do them with your puppy, right? So they go hand in hand. So you want to crate train your dog to keep them on a schedule. If you've got your puppy on the schedule and then they're in their crate, they're not likely to pee or poop in their crate because they don't want to pee or poop when they have to sleep. If your dog's got a whole room or a whole house, I can just go pee in that corner and then keep going play over there. Like, that's fine. And then it helps them like not get into things and not just be in the habit of doing whatever they want whenever they want. Not only that, but training your dog is a life skill. So guys, crate trained, I can tell her kennel, she'll go in her kennel with the door open and she'll hang out there. I can tell her kennel and she'll go in there and lay down and I can close it. Do I crate her every time I leave her unattended? No. Should I? Maybe. Do I have a nanny cam and I check on her? Yes. But she can. So I randomly crate her, and if I were to ever have to travel with her, I can crate her no problem. If I don't want to use me for an example. If somebody has a dog and God forbid they have to go to the hospital and their dog needs to be boarded somewhere, or let's say something happier, they choose to go on vacation, like your dog's got to be boarded somewhere, they're probably going to be put in a kennel. And if your dog's never gone in a kennel a day in their life, that is just another stressful thing for them on this already stressful situation. But if your dog's already kennel trained, they can go anywhere and go in a kennel and feel that calming effect because that's how you've trained the kennel.
Mm-hmm.
And that was a whole little tangent, but I'm like, when you have a puppy, by kennel training them early, you're setting them up for success in so many different situations in the future.
Right.
So sure, once your puppy is potty trained and they've been through obedience training and they're a pretty good pup and you want to try to give them some more freedom, fine. That's fine. You don't have to crate your dog every day if they can handle that. But if they can't handle that, you can fall back on that crate. Or if they can handle it in emergency situations when you need it, they're crate trained. So they're not going to have any negative feelings about going in the crate because it's been something they've done since they're a puppy.
Right.
And even for adult dogs, if you get a dog who doesn't like the crate, you can still crate train them and you can still make the crate a chill place to be. But yes, recommend crate training because it's a life skill. Like,
it is. It's a really useful skill and you might think you never need it. But like, what if you do?
Mm-hmm.
It's just nice to have. It's a nice
Right.
option. So, scooching over to question 4. How do I stop my dog from rolling in deer poop?
So, few things you can do. Lots of things you can do. Very simple. How do you stop? You correct. So, you see dog rolling in deer poop, you mark it with no, or whatever your verbal marker is, and then you correct. So that can mean e-collar, leash pop, bonk, spray bottle, whatever. But you'll have to catch the dog in the act and correct them. But now your dog's already got deer poop on him, right? So you got to let him get the poop on him. You said rolling in it, right? Or did I just imagine that?
Rolling in it, yeah.
Okay, yeah. Now you've already got deer crap on your dog and they got corrected and now they got to get a bath. You could out them away from it. So every time you see them starting to get into it, out them away. One thing I say with out, that at least I feel is true, if you consistently out your dog away from something, they're just going to not go towards anymore. Because first off, I outed you away from that. If I didn't say break, you can't go there anyways. So like if in the same like 5 minutes I say out, you walk away from it and then you go back, that would be a correction because I told you out and I didn't release you from it. But if every day you take your dog for a walk and you out them off of deer poop every day, they're going to say, gosh, what is the point? Every time I get near this, I got to get away from it. So why bother? So yeah, out them away from it. Or if your dog doesn't know out yet, because it's a super cool command, you should train it, then just recall them away from it. Yeah. But correct it or just prevent it from happening, because the more they practice that, the more they're like, this deer poop smells great, and they roll in it. Rolling it is their reward. Mm-hmm. So they're just rewarding themselves by doing it over and over and over.
I love that, because I would have just gone to out or correcting, and you were like, recall them away from it. I'm like, all right. Either way, like, all of that's a good option, so you have lots of options.
Alrighty. Okay, 5. Here we go. Susan, I like to play music in my house, and I like it kind of loud, but like it's not blasting or whatever, so don't worry, okay? Is that okay to do when my dog's in the house? Like, will that hurt their ears? Because we all know dogs' ears are super sensitive.
Yeah, so yes, I say yes because I do it. The only caveat there is, so I'll play Spotify on my TV. I have a place bed right in front of it. I'm not going to ask my dog to place right in front of the TV because I'm like, that's going to be quite loud. Personally, for me, okay, so my dogs are trained, right? they're allowed to be in the house. So I'm going to play my music, and if the dog thinks it's too loud, they'll go upstairs, right? But my dogs have that freedom. If your dog doesn't have that freedom, then I might just place them away from where the music's coming from. But yeah, nothing wrong with that. Totally fine.
Yeah, I like that. I don't really have anything to say, but I like that because you're right. Dogs aren't stupid. If the music is hurting their ears, they'll remove themselves. And if they don't have that option, set them up for success by putting them farthest away from the music if there's any question about it.
Right.
So I like that. I don't really have any experience with this because I always have my headphones in, and I guess I could go for the car. When I'm in the car, I feel kind of bad, and I don't
me
music
too.
in the car because I'm like, there's already so many stressors going on for you, or like stressors. There's already a lot going on. I don't know. Yeah.
Sorry, I was
thinking. I waited because I was like, you got some dog training to do.
Like, no.
So, fun fact, Susan is working with her board and train right now, Mr. Took, and we're trainers, so we got to train. So she had him, it sounded like in LA, so she's got to hold him accountable for that, right? Because we want to be really clear and consistent.
Yeah, so if you, on the replay, screech back and then if you rewind it, you'll see me look over at him because I was going to just make up this question on the spot for Rachel. But what he does is he's in LA. He'll scrunch himself this way. Now this way. So he starts out looking at you.
Mm-hmm.
Or no, actually he starts out not looking at me. And then he'll just like slowly scritch his feet. And then 5 minutes later, scritch his feet. And 5 minutes later, scritch his feet. So now he's looking at you, but he's never broke his leg, technically. Like he's staying in a down, but he's like turning. Okay, so anyway, that was going to be my fake question. Like, is it okay to let my dog scritch around in LA? Okay, anyway. Mm-hmm. I looked over at him because you could see him thinking.
Mm-hmm. So that's why I saw you looking and I like didn't say anything because I'm like, gosh, she's got dog trainer things going on.
Yeah, I sure did. Because he was like, I'm like, you're going to get up. But yeah, so that was cute. So he did break his leg. So I said no and corrected. But he had already taken 2 steps towards me. And then he went back into his leg. And I'm like, nah, I'm not going to let you do that. So I just recalled him back to where he was and put him back into a leg. But yeah. Dog trainer things.
Right. Interesting. Well, I am going to actually comment on that, even though we've moved past it. But the scritching around, what do you think? So if he's staying geographically right here, and his body is just going like that, what do you do?
Yeah, and he only does it. It will literally be like every 5 minutes. So it's like he's laying like this,
mm-hmm.
or whatever. He's laying like this, and he'll just be like, I'm just gonna shift my legs. So it's like, that's not a big fucking deal. Whoops.
That's okay. We're all adults here.
Well, turn around. Okay. So he's like laying like, you could edit it out if you want. He's laying like this. Oh, okay. Sorry.
Oh, you're okay. So he's laying like this.
He's laying like this. And he'll scritch his legs, right? So he's like scritching.
Mm-hmm.
And that's it. He'll only move an inch.
Yeah.
And then 5 minutes later, he does it again. But he's doing the same way.
Just getting comfy, maybe.
So literally after 30 minutes, now he's facing me. Does it? What do you? I don't.
Right. So for me, yeah, me personally, like I don't care either. So it's interesting because I started listening to a few new podcasts. So I don't remember who said this. I don't want to go on a whole tangent. Anyways, it's like as long as you're geographically, like your stay is right here, geographic to this area, just stay here and you're fine. So they were talking if the dog sits and goes into a down, they don't care, which I don't care if the sit's been for a while, but that's a conversation for another day. But yeah, interesting that it wasn't like, I'm just going to like turn around and look at you, but it was like, I'm going to get a little comfortable and move a little bit and move a little bit and move a little bit. So that's cool. But then yeah, just don't break your down because then you got to go back. Okay, well, that was cool. Thank you, Chick, for that little fun fact.
Yeah, he's staring at me now. Okay, so he's turned the other way. He's facing the other way, but he's staring at me. Okay, so anyway. Number 6. My Aussie gets excited when we play ball and will go after my other dog when we play. Why does he do that?
Why does he do that? I don't know. Maybe he's a jerk. No, I'm just kidding. Why does he do that? So probably over arousal. If it's only happening, like over arousal, kind of like redirecting. So when dogs get really pumped up sometimes, their go-to is their mouth. So that's where you see dogs like redirecting on their owners, their siblings when they're on a walk. If they're reacting at another dog, they're just like, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God, gotta use my mouth, boom, chomp on whatever's closest. Could be that without seeing it. I don't know. Is it resource guarding? Is it happen when you throw the ball and your one dog gets it and then dog who bites goes after him? I don't know. So as far as why, is that I don't know an appropriate answer. It could. My guess with Aussies playing fetch, and if it only happens during fetch, my guess is that is just a too. What would the word
Overload?
be? Yeah, like an overload. That's a too. I don't know what the word I'm looking for. Too high drivey. I don't know what's the word. I don't know. Too much for him. Yeah, maybe. I don't know. But I just don't know. Sounds like that situation for him is just a lot. So while the question didn't say what can I do, I'm going to go ahead and recommend not playing fetch with them together. First off, because we want to keep dog who's being attacked safe. And then fully train him and help him calm down, because it sounds like he's just way over threshold when that happens, and then he redirects on his sibling. So training, structure, balance throughout his life to help bring him down. And then later you maybe see if he can handle it. But for safety, separate them.
Right.
What do you think?
Yeah, it's either redirection from over-adrenalization or aggression. If it only happens with the ball, I'd be leaning towards being over-adrenalized because he's a amped up dog and it's like ball, 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 ball is life. So he's frustrated because he can't get to the ball, bites the other dog. He's frustrated because the other dog gets the ball, bites the dog. Either way, I mean, the why matters to know if it's aggression versus over-adrenalization, but that's when your trainer would come in. So I would recommend working with the trainer because this would be really hard to do by yourself. So if you can't afford a boarding trainer, if you don't have any local trainers, you could always hit somebody up for a Zoom consult just to see what you can do.
You're offering those now, Susan?
I'm not, but I know somebody that is.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's a way cool a dog training or something.
I'll have to look her up or something. Sounds familiar.
Yeah.
But yeah, definitely, no matter how you do it, reach out to another trainer, because even if it is just being over-adrenalized and redirecting, obviously that's not good. And I just feel like that could lead to other bad things. So you're just that hyped up in the backyard with the ball. Like, where's your mindset at? So definitely want to address that. Ready to scooch?
I'm ready to scooch, yep.
All right, question 7. I was just thinking, anyone who didn't hear our conversation where we were talking about scooching, it was because now we just scooching on over to the next one. It's because we have no good transition between questions, so we're just like, scooch over, okay. Question 7. How old should my puppy be before I start grooming her, bathing her, brushing her, and trimming her nails?
Well, hopefully 8 weeks. I was going to say whenever you get her. But sometimes you can get puppies at 6 weeks, which is that's way too young. But anyway, you should get a puppy at 8 weeks. Hopefully you got the puppy at 8 weeks or older. But from the minute you get that puppy home, you can start working with them and desensitizing them to things that they're going to have to be exposed to later. And doing it now is oftentimes easier than waiting. So it might not seem that way because your puppy's going to be like a little shark. And when you try to brush your puppy, it's going to be like, right? If you just take compressed air and say, no, compressed air, the puppy's going to almost crap his pants and be like, what? And you're like, yeah, we're just brushing now. And then you can brush out your puppy.
You're like, oh, okay.
Yeah. So it's like a startle effect. So they're like, what? You're like, yeah, we don't bite at the brush. We're just going to sit here. So it might seem difficult at first, and you might think it'll be easier to do it as an adult because little puppies are just relentless, but it's much easier to stop that behavior than you think and get the puppy used to it. So the second you bring that dog home, you can start working on desensitizing it to brushing and bathing and nail trims and that sort of thing.
Definitely agree with you. So as I mentioned before, I used to specialize in puppies. I am toying with the idea of offering a puppy program. So if anyone wants to see cute puppies, I do have one starting on Monday. But that being said, yes, training starts the second you bring your puppy home. The second you pick her up from wherever. The second she or he is in your hands, training has begun, whether you know it or not, okay? So desensitization is one of the most important things you can do for your puppy. One of the most. Everything is important. But when I used to specialize with puppies, I would do a puppy program thing at the place I was working at, and it was literally all desensitization and intro to training. So we would do nails, and I would bathe them and brush them and handle them like a vet would, and do all that stuff, and then of course deal with puppy binding, but that's a different thing. But yeah, it's going to be much easier to stop it now, because the thing with puppies is you're setting the tone for the rest of their life. So if right now you allow biting at the brush and biting at your hands when you're trying to groom them, it's all fun and games now because it's probably just curiosity on the puppy's part, like, oh, what's this thing touching me? It's going to turn into, don't touch me with that thing. So then your groomer is going to be, or you down the line when you try to brush your dog like a responsible owner, so go for brushing your dog, it's going to be a problem later. So set them up now for success, show them now how to do this, and just move forward. But yeah, like you said, it's going to be pretty easy to stop now, so you're going to want to stop it now, because if it gets to the point where you've got a 6-month-old dog who's never been groomed or brushed or anything in her life, I'm imagining like a long hair breed or whatever, like it's gonna probably be a headache for everyone involved.
Right.
Or a year-old dog or whatever. So you can start as soon as you bring her home. Now, as far as baths, you don't want to be bathing your puppy every day because it's not good for their skin. So I think it's like 2 weeks is max how often you would want to do it. But if the bath is that terrible and scary for your puppy, you can put them in an empty bathtub. I don't care. Like, you can do things to work towards it. But only actually have like soap and water on your dog every 2 weeks. Yeah. But yeah, good question. Good that you're thinking about preparing your puppy for some stuff.
All right, question 8. My dog chews his bed sometimes in his kennel. Not every time, maybe once a month. I've been told it's because he's bored. Should I buy him more toys?
All right. So, yeah, buy him all of the toys. No, I'm just kidding. All right. So, it's only happening once a month, which is weird. But it is what it is. Okay. So, what I would do there is, so is it because he's bored? I don't know. Is it because that day you happen to miss his walk, so he's got a bunch of extra energy? I don't know, but the why doesn't really matter. You can't chew your bed. So the issue here is going to be you got to correct it, right? If you want him to stop chewing his bed, so you'd have to set up an nanny cam, you'd have to watch him, you'd have to catch him in the act, you'd have to correct it. That's going to be difficult when he does it so randomly. And then anytime I hear dogs like ripping things up and chewing things up or whatever, it makes me nervous because I've seen dogs eat bedding and get very sick. So I almost want to say he doesn't have the privilege to have bedding right now. Now, I know if you're like, well, I don't want my dog to be on like the floor of their crate, whatever. Maybe see if you can fit a cot in the kennel. I have seen like cot type things in a kennel that a dog can't destroy like they could just a regular bed. So maybe you can look into that. So if we got something a little softer to lay on. But really, if he's going to eat something and get sick and die because he's destroying his bed every month, I don't know. I wouldn't want to risk it. But what you could also do, one other thing, is just really evaluate the situation, because dogs pick up on cues that we don't. Dogs are extremely observant, and they pick up on so many little cues, or it could just be something as simple as they didn't get walked that day and then they destroyed their bed. So if you can find a pattern, I would maybe set it up and try to correct it. But if you can't find a pattern because it happens so randomly, then they probably just don't deserve, they haven't earned the right to have a bed. As far as buying more toys, sure. If you're going to engage with your dog and play with them and like mentally stimulate them with those toys, that might wear them out, but that's not going to like solve the problem.
Right.
What do you think? What would your go-to be for that? Because it's kind of weird it happening so randomly.
Right. I would prefer if they could evaluate the situation and see if there's anything different that day. Like I know in this situation, it's a husband and wife that live with this dog, and the wife is more strict than the husband. Now I know that. So did the husband put the dog in the kennel that day, and did the husband work the dog that day? Because I know in this situation,
I'm going to push these boundaries with him.
Yes. And so because the dog's not worked that day, and he's just loose in the house, of course he's going to be more of an anxiety kind of mindset when he goes in the kennel, and now he chews the bedding. Or whatever, but see if you can evaluate what's different, because it's not normal that once a month he does this. It reminds me of like an anxious kind of behavior or a learned behavior, meaning that he's done this enough times. It's just like another big toy to him. Like it's comfortable, but I'm just kind of like going to sit here and chew on it because I can, and I have before, and no one said anything. So how would they know different? Why do we just assume dogs don't know to chew on the bed? You know? So I would be also leaning towards a learned behavior that he's just done, and he doesn't know any different, so he's like, I'm just going to chew on it. So honestly, I would take the bedding out. I'd be like, sucks to be you, but you're not going to have any bedding in your kennel. And then just see if there's any kind of like pattern, because you would have to punish this behavior for it to stop, like 100%. And like Rachel said, it's hard to set that up, because you could be sitting outside watching a camera for days. You know, you do it one day, he doesn't do it. You do it the next day, he doesn't do it. Like you might be doing that for a month before he does it. But that's why it's easy.
And who's to say that one correction is going to do it too? Because in my head, I'm like, you might have to catch him doing it a couple times for him to really get it.
Right.
So yeah.
It's just difficult. But
crazy.
Easiest is just take the bedding away and maybe get it caught, like Rachel said.
Yeah. Rude. Okay, so where am I at? Question 9? Yeah. Okay. Do you recommend puppies or adult dogs to a first-time dog owner?
Depends. What do you want to do with your dog? What are you willing to do with your dog? Do you have the time for a puppy? Do you have the time for an adult dog? They both take time, but puppies are different because they don't take more. Okay, because depending on the age of your puppy, let's say the puppy's 8 weeks old, it can only hold its bladder for 3 hours. Are you home enough to be able to take it outside to go potty every 3 hours? Because if it's in its crate for 8 hours, like it's gonna go potty in its crate. You know, like that. Let's be kind of realistic here. Whereas an adult dog, it can hold its bladder, so you don't have to worry about that. But maybe you get the dog and it has crate anxiety, so that sucks. So it's like, what are you looking for, and how much time do you have to put in it? You know, what's gonna fit into your lifestyle? Like puppies are all fun and games, but they're a lot of work. Not that an adult dog's not, but puppies are just different.
Different level of work.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think you brought up really good points there, because they're both going to be a lot of work. And as a first-time dog owner, like, not saying you know nothing, because you weren't born yesterday, but as a first-time dog owner, like, be prepared. If you get a puppy or an adult dog, do some research, maybe look into a trainer. If you have a local trainer, maybe get their advice. Because if you get a puppy, the cool things about a puppy is, you get that they're going to grow up with you. So if you get a puppy and you've maybe read a book or you've got some idea of how you want to do training with them, you can kind of mold your puppy into a pretty good dog because you have them since they're little. At the same time, if you've never owned a dog before and you get a puppy and they're biting on you and peeing in the house and doing all this crazy stuff and you don't know what to do or don't know how to respond to that, you could also have like a terror. They could like turn into like a terror really fast, or progressively worse terror. But then same thing with an adult dog. Like I've seen people adopt an adult dog and be super lucky and not do any training with the dog, and I'm like, you got lucky. Or you can get a dog who's got past problems. So no matter what, when you go into it, it is kind of like a gamble because they're not robots. It's not a copy and paste thing. Like they have their own personalities, and unfortunately, we can't just like have them fill out an interview process to be your dog. It can't be like, so tell me, how do you feel about staying home while I'm at work? You can't do that. So it is a gamble either way. So for anyone getting a new dog, or especially a first-time dog owner, it's like be prepared for the work that's going to go into it. It's going to be a different type of work. So yeah, if you don't have the time, definitely want to go for a puppy. But be prepared either way.
Right.
So.
Yeah. Well, last question. This is it. How do I teach my 5-month-old pug to stop pulling on her harness?
Okay, how do you teach your 5-month-old pug to stop pulling on your harness? So you would want to train her. Thanks for joining us for today's Q&A. And no, I'm just kidding. Susan, like, are you being serious? No. So you'll want to train her a heel. I would recommend ditching the harness. You could watch YouTube videos or consult a trainer or whatever and figure out how to train her a nice heel. But that harness is encouraging the pulling. Not to tool shame, I just don't like harnesses a lot because they are advertised that they curb pulling. They, in fact, encourage it. Just think of a sled dog. Do what?
They make pulling more comfortable for the
Exactly.
dog.
So if you think about sled dogs, they wear harnesses because it disperses the pressure throughout their whole body, right? Rather than them pulling with their neck. So the harness is going to encourage the pulling. So you're going to want to have some sort of collar on. We train with prong collars, obviously, and then you want to teach pressure on, pressure off. You could either just teach your dog to have a loose leash, or you can train a heel. Could you do it with a harness technically? But like doing 180 drills and spatial pressure and pressure on, pressure off stuff is going to be your best friend. Could I explain that better without actually showing it? Maybe, but that's just going to be my answer.
Yeah, it's hard for us because we don't teach using harness as one of our tools. It just because they were designed to pull. So why am I going to work against like the mechanics of this tool to make it something that it's not? I'm not going to use a pulling device to teach you not to pull. It just doesn't make sense. You can do it for sure. There's trainers out there that teach it that way. It's not my skill set. So I'm never going to advise you how to train not to have a dog pull on a harness because that's not my skill set. And that just doesn't make sense to me. It doesn't ring true. So it's not how I train. I would ditch the harness and use a prong collar. But if you want to stick with the harness, then I would just try to, search up some good trainers that's how they train. I just can't, unfortunately, give you any information because that's not how I train.
And I will add one thing because it just clicked in my head. I think I hinted at this, but so fine, stay with the harness if that's what you choose. But one thing with any dog in any situation is other than how we train. So in any situation, no, I'm just kidding. So other than when you're training pressure on, pressure off, that constant pressure. So if your dog's pulling against you and you're holding a constant pressure, they have what's called an opposition reflex, which is encouraging them to pull against you. So you're pulling them this way. That's making them want to pull against you even more. So instead of like what I'll see is people like their dogs dragging them down the street and it's just constant tension. If you could let go of the pressure and apply a pop, the dog's going to be like, what was that? And then they're going to focus on you more. But yeah, so that was just one more thing. Try not to have that constant pressure. So if you can do like a pop and release pressure, whether that be on the prong collar or on the harness or on the whatever, that's going to help you out more because if you're pulling and they're pulling, it's a game of tug of war and they're going to want to win. So whether it's just being like pop and the dog's going to be like, oh, okay, cool. And then go about your day. That was one little thing I want to add. Okay. Wow.
That was quick.
Yeah. I know. I was just thinking that. And compared to last week, what did we do? 3 hours last week?
Yeah.
Oh gosh.
Wow.
Huh?
We held ourselves back this time.
Yeah, we can't do a 3 hour one every day. Okay, it was only like an hour and 10 minutes, but whatever. So super cool stuff. I think I always love the questions we get every week. We get to talk about some really cool stuff.
Yeah.
So as always, if anyone has any questions, let us know, comment, send us a DM, do whatever. We'll find it if you put your question out there and we'll answer it. We're on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube at Pack Leader Dog and Rachel Kohler Dog Training.
Awesome. See you
Hope
guys.
everyone has a great day.